Right on the chin. Mamma mia! What a knee! You cannot stand in front of that man. That power is different. It's extraordinary.
Another opponent to the lead. What a head kick.
It's all over. A spectacular finish, just like that.
Headshot, bang, done.
What's up, fight fans? We are back with another episode of the Fight Corner, taking a look at UFC 304 Edwards versus Muhammad 2 from Manchester, England. Taking a look at the entire main card, prelims and early prelims, looking at who got the bonuses for the evening, and a brief look ahead to next week's fight card from Abu Dhabi. Corey Sandhagen taking on Umar Nurmagomedov from the Etihad Arena. Got a lot to get into this episode, so without any further ado, let's get right into it. In the main event, it was the champ Leon Edwards taking on Belal Muhammad for the welterweight belt. Muhammad in early on a double against the cage and easily gets Edwards to the ground, but Edwards does a good job to create some space and get back to his feet, clinching against the cage with both looking for strikes. And a good elbow off the break from Edwards, followed by a hard knee to the body. And a really nice hard uppercut from Edwards. And he continues to attack the body, but a nice elbow in close from Muhammad, and Edwards answers with another knee to the body. Muhammad with a lead left hook and then a nice uppercut of his own before jabbing Edwards against the fence, going to the body and getting another easy takedown off the cage and some good ground and pound before the end of the round. In the second, Muhammad getting his jab going early, backing Edwards up with his hands. But Edwards landing shots as well, and Muhammad uses the overhand right to get in on a takedown. But Edwards defends really well to keep it on the feet initially, but Muhammad stays with it, getting to Edwards' back against the cage, and Muhammad goes high crotch and dumps Edwards right on the top of his head. And it's super scary when things like that happen. I mean, that could be a career, life-changing injury, but Edwards seems to be okay. Muhammad gets on the back again of Edwards against the cage and looks for that same high crotch, but this time Edwards is able to get both of his hands down to avoid the spike. But Muhammad continues to smother Edwards against the cage. But Edwards is able to reverse position and gets a takedown of his own, dragging Muhammad off the fence and landing a hard knee to the body, and finishes on top against the cage to end the round. In the third, Muhammad in early on a takedown, but Edwards is able to slip out the back door and get to Muhammad's back, taking the fight to the ground and securing the body triangle. And Edwards staying tight on the back, cooking Muhammad and finishing the round from that position. In the fourth, Edwards going to the body and following it up with a right and a left upstairs, seeming to stumble Muhammad a bit, who comes back with some nice jabs of his own. And a good 1-2 against the cage, pinning Edwards with his jab before looking for another takedown, getting Edwards to a knee against the cage with Muhammad on his back, before fully taking the back, looking for shots and to keep control. Edwards is able to eventually roll through and get into Muhammad's guard, ending the round looking to get onto the back. In the fifth, both landing early and a great stuff of a takedown from Edwards, and Muhammad lands a few shots as they come up. Again, Muhammad pins Edwards against the cage with a few punches before getting in on another takedown, getting on the back of Edwards, locking in the body triangle, and controlling Edwards for most of the round. Until Edwards breaks the lock on Muhammad's legs and turns into him, getting top position. And with 40 seconds left, Edwards looks for the finish, smashing Muhammad with elbows, cutting him on the bridge of the nose and landing several more before the end of the round. But it was not enough to retain the title, and this was a unanimous decision victory for Belal Muhammad, 48-47 by two of the judges and 49-46 by the other. really good performance from Belal Muhammad, really showing how well-rounded he is. Some very good striking and obviously his very heavy wrestling game. But a great performance from Leon Edwards as well. Again, not giving up on himself, and really fighting until the bell, which is kind of what you want to see out of your champion, whether he's winning or losing. But it will be interesting to see where the welterweight division goes from here. In your co-main event, it was the interim champion Tom Aspinall taking on Curtis Blaydes in the heavyweight division. Blaydes with an early right hand connection, and they exchange when Aspinall crashes in before they clinch, and Aspinall disengages back to center. Blaydes with a quick 1-2 and just short with the follow-up right. And Aspinall lands a left hand and just missing the right behind, but still sending Blaydes down to the canvas, where Aspinall follows up with a flurry of left and right hands, forcing Marc Goddard to stop the fight. And yeah, we have a new heavyweight champion, and he will wait to see who claims the number one contender spot when Miocic and Jones, two guys who have each fought once in the last 4 years, meet at MSG later this year, if it even happens. And I'm obviously, joking around a little bit here, but I do feel that a lot of MMA fans will feel that Tom Aspinall is the rightful heavyweight champion, been far more active in the division, obviously, and has now actually defended this interim belt. I mean, it'll be almost 18 months since Jones won the vacant heavyweight title that he's fought anyone else in the division. I mean, he's technically not even beaten a champion in the division yet, whereas Aspinall has gone through Pavlovich and Blaydes, two top contenders in the division. So take from that what you will. And in your feature bout of the evening, it was Bobby Green taking on Paddy Pimblett in the lightweight division. And good jab from Pimblett and getting his kicks going early, and Green with a few side kicks to the lead leg of Pimblett, but not able to get his hands going yet. And Green goes for the takedown off of a Pimblett low kick, who defends with a guillotine, also trapping the arm of Green, and then transitions right into the triangle. Beautiful stuff from Pimblett. Green tries to tough it out, but it's in way too deep, and Green goes to sleep without tapping. And this will send Paddy Pimblett into the top 15 next week with the first round submission, moving to 6-0 in the UFC, and his hype train continues to roll. Next up on the card, we had Gregory Rodriguez taking on Christian Leroy Duncan in the middleweight division. Rodriguez with a nice left hand on the retreating Duncan, and Duncan with a hard leg kick. Duncan with a series of punches causing Rodriguez to go back, but he gets in on a single leg, easily getting Duncan to the ground. Looking to land short shots from half guard, and some good elbows from Rodriguez as well, and really welting up the head of Duncan early. Duncan is able to wrestle up to a single leg and works hard to prevent Rodriguez from getting to his back. Hard counter left from Rodriguez to start the second, and to the body before they clinch, where Rodriguez lands some good knees to the body as well. Nice elbow in the clinch from Duncan, and they both look for some dirty boxing before Rodriguez lands on the break. And Duncan looks for the spinning elbow, and they clinch up with Rodriguez getting to Duncan's back against the fence. Duncan works back to 50-50, and the ref breaks them up pretty quickly. They meet again in close, with Duncan just missing the elbow, and both landing before they clinch, and Rodriguez with a short uppercut that I think cuts Duncan as they clinch against the cage. An elbow on the break from Rodriguez, and he lands some hard shots on Duncan before planting a right hand on the side of Duncan's head. But Duncan locks up with Rodriguez and lands a beautiful elbow, cutting Rodriguez on the left eye. Rodriguez, though, continues to land good shots on Duncan before getting to a body lock and taking Duncan to the ground, finishing the round on top. In the third, good kicks from Duncan to start the round, but Rodriguez still with the forward pressure landing on Duncan before they clinch against the cage, with Duncan looking for the spinning elbow off the break, but it allows Rodriguez to get to his back and slam him to the canvas. But there's no control, and Duncan gets right back to the clinch against the cage. Rodriguez looking for a single leg and nearly getting Duncan down, who throws a wild spinning kick with some crazy athleticism, but Rodriguez is right in on the clinch again, getting the fight to the ground, on Duncan's back, looking for ground and pound, and Duncan does well to get to his feet before the end of the round, but this was an easy unanimous decision victory for Gregory Rodriguez, and the judges had it that way as well, 30-27 on all scorecards for the RoboCop. And kicking off the main card, it was Arnold Allen taking on Giga Chikadze in the featherweight division. Chikadze wasting no time in getting his kicks going upstairs and to the legs, and Chikadze continuing with his kicks, and they really seem to be stifling Allen, who can't get anything going through the first 2 minutes. Chikadze with a hard right hand to the head and then to the body. Allen finding a bit of success late in the round with his left hand, but it's Chikadze who is leading this. And Chikadze skimming the face of Allen with a flying knee before the end of the round, and Allen replies with a front kick right to the face. In the second, hard leg kick from Allen, and Chikadze responds with some stiff jabs, and a hard straight left on the advancing Allen, and Allen with one of his own. Allen continuing to advance, looking for punches on his entry, but not able to pin Chikadze down, and Chikadze gets up a quick head kick and a nice left hand in return from Allen. Good counter left from Allen, getting Chikadze to back up, and Allen finding his range more consistently, landing another big left on Chikadze against the cage, and both landing before the end of the round. In the third, Allen right back on the pressure, landing his left hand and his jab, and another big left hand from Allen and a nice counter from Chikadze off of the Allen jab, and a hard left from Allen against the cage, and he lands several more shots to the retreating Chikadze before the end of the round. And this went to a judge's decision, which was unanimous for Arnold Allen, 29-28 on all three judges' scorecards. And in the featured prelim, it was Daniel Pineda taking on Nathaniel Wood in the featherweight division. Hard low kicks from Wood to start the first, and Pineda looks for the takedown, but Wood stuffs it and they clinch against the cage. They break back to the center, each landing hard kicks, and it's Wood with a perfect front kick to the body and 2 shots upstairs, forcing Pineda to shoot, but he ends up pulling guard. Wood follows up with some punches, but Pineda wraps him up and controlling the posture and landing a nice elbow from the bottom, and Wood lands one in return. And Pineda with a hip bump sweep off the Kimura trap, which was really slick, briefly ending up in mount, but settles in guard, landing a hard elbow from the top, and Pineda ends the round with some big ground and pound. Good kicks from both to start the second round, and after a Pineda land, Wood rushes in with several punches, hurting and pushing Pineda back to the cage, looking for a follow-up punches, but Pineda keeps the distance with some wild hooks. More front kicks to the body from Wood, and a hard leg kick from Pineda, and Wood fires back one of his own that drops Pineda to a knee, and then another one right after, and Wood cracks Pineda with a jab that sends him briefly to the canvas, with Wood following up with more kicks to the legs and body. Nice body shots from Pineda, but Wood answers with a right hand and a left hook, rocking him, sending him back, and Wood follows up with more punches and drops Pineda with another clean left hook, following up with some solid elbows on the ground, but Pineda is able to control the posture of Wood to stop the onslaught. In the third, Pineda, knowing that he needs a finish, really pushing forward with a wild spinning back fist to open the third, before pressuring Wood back with punches and looking for a takedown. But Wood defends and looks for a guillotine and then moves into side control, but lets Pineda back to his feet, and more good kicks to the body and legs from Wood, who clinches up, and Pineda rolls through, looking for a potential knee bar or just a scramble to end up in a better position, but ends up with Wood somewhat on his back, and Pineda lands a solid elbow, and eventually ends up in top half, looking for a possible Darce and then a Kimura, but Wood does defend, but does end the round and the fight on bottom, and this did go to a unanimous decision victory for Nathaniel Wood, 29-27 by 2 of the judges and 29-28 by the other. Next up on the prelim card, we had Bruna Brasil taking on Molly McCann in the women's strawweight division. McCann taking the center of the octagon right away and eats a hard calf kick from Brazil and a nice front kick to the body as well. McCann pressuring in with heavy shots, but Brazil easily slips away before catching McCann below the belt, causing a stop in action. When they resume, Brazil lands a nice knee to the body on the advancing McCann and another shortly after. And again, later in the round, that same knee to the body drops McCann, and Brazil briefly thought about keeping McCann on the floor, but she steps back and lets her get back to her feet, where she launches a kick right to that same spot, visibly hurting McCann, who manages to stay on her feet. But Brazil is stalking her against the cage, ripping to the body and the head before landing several more knees to the body, but McCann doesn't fold and secures the body lock, trying to limit the space between them. And McCann looks to get the fight to the ground, but ends up with Brazil on her back. And McCann puts her own back to the canvas to avoid any kind of a potential choke or submission, and Brazil stands back to her feet, but McCann grabs her by the foot and initiates a single leg, transitions to a double, and gets Brazil to the mat. But Brazil easily works back to her feet, where she lands another knee to the body before defending another McCann takedown. In the second, McCann looking to keep that pressure on Brazil before looking for the takedown, but it's stuffed and they clinch against the fence. Each looking for knees against the cage before McCann lifts and dumps Brazil to the mat. Really nice from McCann, but again, Brazil is able to get the fight back to the feet. They clinch against the fence, where Brazil hits the Uchimata, getting McCann flat on the canvas. Brazil does stand back up, allowing McCann back to her feet, and McCann looks for the spinning attack and gets crushed with a right hand from Brazil, sending McCann to the canvas and ending the round on top. In the third, McCann, knowing that she needs a finish, really pressuring Brazil to start this round. And McCann looks to clinch and get the fight to the ground, but Brazil reverses and ends up on top. McCann is able to work back to her feet and still looking to pressure Brazil with a right and left hand, followed by a push kick to the body. And McCann continuing to push forward, landing good shots against the cage, and Brazil fires back with a knee to the head. Brazil catches the McCann kick and easily gets the fight to the ground, eventually moving to the back, but McCann stands up, shakes Brazil off, and immediately jumps on her back, but Brazil is able to reverse and ending up on top herself. Great fight, and what unbelievable toughness from McCann. After that brutal first round, most people would have given up, but she didn't, and just an incredible performance from her. Even in a loss, this is, some form of a win, definitely. But the actual win went to Bruna Silva, who won a unanimous decision, 30-27 on 2 judges' scorecards and 29-28 on the other. Moving down the prelims, it was Jake Hadley taking on Kaylin Loughran on short notice at a catchweight bout of 137 pounds. Loughran looking to get his jab going early, and Hadley blasts him with a clean 1-2. And Hadley attacking the legs of Loughran, and more straight punches and attacks to the legs from Hadley. Hadley continues to have success with the hands and the feet, and Loughran not able to get off until near the end of the round, landing on Hadley against the cage. And Hadley ends the round with another left hand snapping Loughran's head back. In the second, Loughran really pressuring Hadley to start the round, with both landing shots on the feet before Loughran looks for the single leg, and Hadley stuffs it, and they clinch against the fence, where Hadley attacks with knees to the body before breaking back to the center. And Loughran back on the pressure, trying to find his jab and landing on Hadley against the cage. And Hadley with a lead hook to the body, but Loughran responds with 2 hard hooks of his own to the head. And Hadley comes back with several straight lefts before a low blow stops the action. When they resume, Loughran continues to pressure Hadley, who is landing the cleaner shots, before Loughran looks for the double leg before switching to the single, looking to dump Hadley to the canvas, who gets right to his feet, with Loughran still looking for the takedown, but Hadley defends, getting back to the center. Where it's Hadley who looks to get a takedown, but Loughran defends and gets to the front headlock, looking to get to the back before settling in half guard for the rest of the round. In the third, Hadley with a solid 1-2 at the start, and Loughran looking for the takedown against the cage, and they end up in a dogfight, with Hadley moving to the back against the cage, landing short shots before they break. And Hadley continuing with his jab and straight lefts, and Loughran again getting deep on a takedown but can't complete it, and they clinch against the cage with Hadley landing a solid elbow on the break. And Loughran continued the forward pressure but is not able to capitalize or land anything of significance for the end of the round. And this went to a judge's decision where it was unanimous for Jake Hadley, 30-27 by two of the judges and 29-28 by the other. Kicking off the prelims, it was the highly anticipated flyweight matchup between Muhammad Mokaev and Manal Kape. A lot of bad blood with this one, and it almost kicked off in the octagon before the introductions, with security separating both men. And they briefly come together in the opening seconds, but despite both really wanting to get at each other before the fight, there is an extended feeling out process, with neither doing much in the opening 2 minutes. And there was more security in the octagon before the fight than shots thrown so far. Mokaev looking to attack the body with kicks and a glancing wheel kick off the head of Kape from Mokaev. And Kape starting to open up at the end of the round, pressuring Mokaev and landing a solid left hand against the cage that forces Mokaev to look for the takedown that Kape easily defends to keep the fight on the feet to end the round. In the second, Mokaev landing an overhand right, and Kape appears to have hurt or broke a bone in his toe or foot after that, and he reaches down to adjust it, and the fight keeps going. Mokaev is able to get in on a takedown, taking Kape to the ground, but he blatantly grabs the shorts of Kape, nearly pulling them off and forcing Mike Beltran to step in and take the position away. And that could very easily be worthy of a point deduction. It was so blatant. And Mokaev will need to be very mindful going forward, because I don't think Mike Beltran is playing games anymore. But back on the feet, Mokaev catches the advancing Kape with an eye to the eye with an outstretched finger. And Beltran said fingers, and Kape turned his back, but the fight keeps going, and Kape is able to stuff the oncoming Mokaev's takedown and keeps the fight on the feet. And Mokaev with a nice left hand off the cage when Kape is pressuring, and Kape with a left hand of his own near the end of the round. In the third, Mokaev with a nice kick upstairs, and Kape stuffs another takedown, and Kape really trying to pressure Mokaev but is not letting go with his strikes. Mokaev is able to get in on a single leg and get Kape to the ground, who locks up a guillotine, but Mokaev is able to pop his head out, where Kape unleashes a flurry of elbows from the bottom, and Mokaev looks for some ground and pound in return. And Kape is able to get his knee shield in play, get into deep half. He inverts and looks for the knee bar, but can't get it, and they end up back on the feet. And it's Kape looking for the single leg, which Mokaev easily defends, and Kape with two left hands before the end of the round, before Mokaev looks for the takedown, and they end the fight locked against the cage. And this one, again, goes to a judge's decision, and it was a unanimous one for Mokaev, 29-28 by two judges and 30-27 by the other. Moving on to the early prelims, we had Oban Elliott taking on Preston Parsons in the welterweight division. They clinch up against the cage early, exchanging positions before breaking back to the center. And a spinning back kick to the body from Elliott, and Parsons responds with a hard calf kick that makes Elliott take a bad step and then attacks the inside of the lead leg as well. Parsons attacks again to the inside leg of Elliott, dropping him to a knee before getting to a front headlock, and they clinch against the fence before breaking back to the center. Parsons continues to attack the legs of Elliott, and Parsons looks for his takedown but is stuffed hard by Elliott, and they clinch against the cage to end the round. In the second, Parsons attacking the legs, and Elliott counters with a right hand. Parsons again looks to get in on a takedown, but is stuffed by Elliott, and they break back to the center. Both landing nice shots, with Elliott looking to use his jab, and Parsons gets in real deep on a double leg, driving Elliott back, but again is not finished the takedown, and Elliott looks to get on the back of Parsons against the cage. Elliott lets go to break back to the center, and he slips a Parsons shot and again gets to the back against the cage, eventually putting Parsons' hip to the mat. But Parsons works back to his feet, and they break, with Elliott look to pressure Parsons against the cage. Elliott seeming more comfortable on the feet, landing some nice shots before they clinch up against the cage, with Parsons again looking for the takedown and nearly gets it, but Elliott uses the Kimura to roll through and get back to his feet, which was very nice. They end the round clinching against the cage. Solid 1-2 from Elliott to start the third, and another nice jab right in the face of Parsons. Parsons pressuring forward, looking to get inside, and gets another of his takedowns stuffed, and Elliott ends up on top. Parsons is able to work back to his feet though, but Elliott keeps the pressure by landing a hard right hand and staying in the face of Parsons before they clinch against the fence. They break back to the center, and Elliott staying on the jab and landing a nice combination in close before clinching briefly against the cage. Parsons again gets deep on a takedown, and Elliott is able to defend the initial attempt, but Parsons stays with it and gets Elliott to the mat, where Elliott immediately attacks with an armbar. He doesn't get it, but it does allow him to work back to his feet, where they clinch against the cage before the end of the round. And this one went to a judge's decision, where it was unanimous for Oban Elliott, 30-27 by two of the judges and 29-28 by the other. Next up on the early prelims, it was Modestas Bukauskas taking on Marcin Prachnio in the light heavyweight division. Some good leg kicks from Prachnio in the first, and Bukauskas answers back with a left hand. And Prachnio continues to attack the legs of Bukauskas, and Bukauskas with a hard kick. It looked like it was to the body, but Prachnio seemed to duck a little bit right into it, catching it a little bit off the forehead. And Prachnio with a good jab to the body and a left hand upstairs. And they clinch up against the cage, with Prachnio looking for knees to the body and Bukauskas landing a spinning elbow on the break. Bukauskas crashes in and stumbles Prachnio with a left hand, and Bukauskas looks to follow up, but Prachnio clinches and circles out to avoid taking any more damage. And Prachnio does seem to be slowing down a little bit, and Bukauskas lands a good right hand and continues to pressure Prachnio at the end of the round, but catches a hard left in doing so. And they both come out swinging to start the second, and Prachnio lands a nice shot to the body. And Prachnio continues to attack with his kicking game. Prachnio continues to press forward, pressuring Bukauskas, who lands a lead left hook and a right hand, briefly dropping Prachnio, who gets back to his feet and shells up against the fence as Bukauskas looks for the finish. But Prachnio hits Bukauskas with a head kick, rocking him and putting Bukauskas on the back foot now. And it's Prachnio looking for the finish on the feet before Bukauskas clinches up. But Prachnio does not relent and attacks with knees to the body, but is unable to get the finish. When they break, Bukauskas is able to get Prachnio to the ground, landing some good ground and pound, but Prachnio is able to work back to his feet at the end of the round. And Prachnio comes out hard to start the third, rocking Bukauskas with punches, forcing him to retreat, and Prachnio continues to land. But they clinch up, and Bukauskas gets the takedown right into half guard. And Bukauskas looking to land short shots and to advance his position before locking up an arm triangle and gets the tap from half guard on the opposite side. So that must have been real tight, or Prachnio must have just been gasping for air. Great fight from both guys though, really great finish, and it goes to Bukauskas with the arm triangle at 3-12 of the third round. Moving down the prelims, we had Sam Patterson taking on Kiefer Crosby in the welterweight division. Crosby attacking the lead leg of Patterson early, and Patterson with a nice combination, but Crosby answers back with a left and a right hook, and then attacking the leg of Patterson. Patterson looking to use his jab, and then lands a nice uppercut, stumbling Crosby, who fires back before forcing a clinch against the cage. Patterson reverses position and sweeps Crosby's leg, getting him to the canvas, moving right into mount and immediately isolating an arm and locking in the arm triangle. Crosby toughed it out for as long as he could, but it was really tight, and it was only a matter of time before Crosby was forced to tap, which he did eventually do, and this was another great submission victory for Sam Patterson at 2 minutes and 50 seconds of round number 1. Next up, we had Lucas Brzezski taking on Mick Parkin in the heavyweight division, each landing some good shots in close before clinching up and continuing to exchange hard, short shots before breaking back to the center. And Parkin landing a hard counter right. Brzezski is using his jab to get inside and land his right hand, and Parkin responds with a left and a right hand of his own. Parkin with a nice left hook off of a Brzezski high kick, and Parkin coming in with the jab and a right hand behind it, stumbling Brzezski, and Parkin follows it up with a series of lefts and rights, crashing Brzezski to the canvas, and Parkin follows up with a few shots on the ground before Mark Goddard stops the fight. And a really impressive KO victory for Mick Parkin, coming at 3:23 of the very first round. And it looks like the UK has another potential heavyweight contender. Kicking off the early prelims, it was Alice Ardalyan taking on Shauna Bannon. Bannon looking to get her kicks going early, and Ardalyan lands a few right hands of her own. Ardalyan is able to get to a clinch and pushes the fight against the cage, eventually getting Bannon to the ground, even with a brutal fence grab. Ardalyan controlling from the top, but Bannon did look to get in on an armbar, which was defended by Ardalyan, and Bannon continues to look for the armbar and does get much deeper and closer on the second attempt. In the second, each having a lot of success at the start of the round, they clinch up and Bannon looks for the throw but is unsuccessful, and they break back to the center, where Bannon pushes Ardalyan back with a series of lefts and rights to the head, forcing Ardalyan to clinch up and push the fight against the cage, with both looking for knees and short shots in close. Ardalyan is able to take Bannon around the side, dumping her to the mat and landing a nice elbow on top. But Ardalyan seems to want to lock onto the head, showing a bit of inexperience, almost giving up her back before they get to the feet at the end of the round. In the third, lots of side kicks from Bannon to start the round, and Bannon is able to land much more on Ardalyan in the start of this round. Bannon continues with her kicks and landing some punches, and Ardalyan is still in this fight, but much better round for Bannon, landing the better shots, doing quite a bit of damage to Ardalyan's face. Ardalyan is able to land a really nice strike at the end of the round, but I have no idea how the judges have actually scored this one, and it was a bit all over the place. It was a split decision, with one judge giving it 29-28 for Ardalyan, and the other two judges 29-28 and 30-27 for Bannon. As for the bonuses for this card, they were increased to $100,000, which coincidentally I did call for in my last video, but I don't think this is going to be a recurring event, but maybe. These went to Tom Aspinall and Mick Parkin, each taking home $100,000, and a very special bonus awarded to Paddy Pimblett, who will be taking home $200,000 for his submission of Bobby Green. Taking a look at this week's fight card, it's Corey Sandhagen taking on Umar Nurmagomedov from the Etihad Arena in Abu Dhabi. Really looking forward to this one. Unfortunately, we did lose the Nick Diaz-Vicente Luque bout off of this card. That is replaced by Mikhail Oleksiejczuk and Sharabutin Magomedov We also have Marlon Vera taking on Davison Figueiredo, which will be a crazy fight. We also have Michael Chiesa taking on Tony Ferguson in what could be Ferguson's last appearance in the octagon, win, lose, or draw. Rounding out the main card is also Mackenzie Dern and Lupi Godinez in the women's strawweight division. And a few fights to look forward to on the prelims. We got Alonzo Menefield and Azamat Mirzakhanov, as well as Shamil Gaziev trying to rebound from that pitiful performance against Jairzinho Rosenstruck. He's taking on Dontel Mays. And we have Jai Herbert against Rolando Bedoya. That fight should be fireworks. Again, that's this upcoming weekend. Early fight card for those in the US. Normal fight card for us here in the UK. Saturday, August 3rd, Corey Sandhagen versus Umar Nurmagomedov. And that does it for another episode of The Fight Corner. I want to thank you all again for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It all goes a really long way. And we'll also be back later this week with a special news dedicated show, as there have been some major announcements for the UFC Noche card. So we'll be looking at that, covering all of that, as well as some other fight news, and maybe a little bit of a breakdown of some of the fights I'm looking forward to from the Sandhagen Nurmagomedov card. But until then, again, thank you all for tuning in. And until next time, peace.